Welcome to the deep dive. You know, there's that moment in the Matrix, the choice. Blue pill, stay comfortable, or red pill. See how deep the rabbit hole goes. It's kind of a fundamental choice, really.
It absolutely is. And it's amazing how relevant that feels to what we're diving into today, which
Yeah.
is Robert Wright's book, Why Buddhism is True.
Right. And didn't the Wachowskis actually give Keanu Reeves Wright's earlier book, The Moral Animal, to prep for playing Neo? There's a real connection there.
Exactly. It sets the stage perfectly. Wright's argument basically is that our brains, shaped by millions of years of natural selection, often, well, they delude us, not maliciously, but because those delusions helped our ancestors survive and pass on genes.
So it's like a feature, not a bug, from evolution's point of view, even if it makes us feel anxious or dissatisfied.
Precisely. And that's our mission for this deep dive. Exploring how modern science evolutionary psychology, neuroscience actually seems to back up some core Buddhist ideas about this inherent delusion.
Okay, so we're going to peel back some layers, challenge our gut feelings about who we are, maybe.
Yeah, look at everyday delusion, question that sense of a solid self in charge, and then see how practices like meditation might offer a way towards, well, clarity. Maybe even a more liberated way of being.
And this isn't about becoming a monk or anything.
No, not at all. It's about insights that anyone can grapple with, useful stuff for navigating modern life, you know?
Okay, let's get into it. The big question first. If our brains are so supposedly advanced, why this constant struggle? Anxiety, wanting stuff, never feeling quite satisfied. It does feel like a design flaw.
It feels like one, for sure. But evolution, it has a really blunt answer. Natural selection doesn't fundamentally care about your happiness, or mine, or about seeing reality clearly.
It just cares about spreading genes.
That's the bottom line. So our perceptions, our thoughts, even our feelings, they're biased. Biased towards whatever helped our ancestors survive and reproduce, even if that means getting reality a bit wrong.
So the brain is kind of designed to delude us, if delusion works for survival. Like believing in the tooth fairy, maybe? A harmless delusion.
Well, Wright used that example, yeah. But the delusions he's talking about are much more fundamental to our daily experience. Think about the hedonic treadmill.
Ah, yes. You chase something, could be junk food, sex, a promotion, that thing you bought online, you get it, that there's a thrill.
And then...
It fades pretty quickly, usually. And then you're looking for the next hit.
Exactly. And this is where you see this amazing overlap with Buddhist thought. The Buddha talked about pleasure being fleeting, impermanent, leading to this background hum of dissatisfaction. Dukkha.
Which isn't just outright suffering, right? It's more like unsatisfactoriness. Things just not quite hitting the mark permanently.
That's a great way to put it. And the evolutionary logic is, well, kind of elegant in a brutal way.
Yeah.
One, achieving goals feels good. That pleasure motivates us.
Okay, makes sense.
Two, that pleasure cannot last forever. If the first amazing meal you ever ate satisfied you for life.
You'd starve, you wouldn't seek food again, your genes wouldn't get passed on.
Right. So three, our brains evolved to focus more on the anticipation of pleasure than on how short-lived the pleasure actually is. Keeps us motivated, keeps us striving, in what Wright calls unalloyed gusto.
That reminds me of those studies Wright mentions, like with monkeys and dopamine spikes, or even humans with, what was it, powdered sugar donuts?
Yeah. The dopamine hit before you even take a bite is often bigger than the actual satisfaction after. It's like our biochemistry is constantly overpromising.
A biochemical acknowledgement of overpromising, I think he called it.
That's the phrase. And what's really telling is Wright's own experiment realizing this, understanding the trick intellectually. It didn't stop him from wanting the donut.
Knowing the truth doesn't automatically fix it.
Not at all. Sometimes seeing the mechanism, seeing the absurdity of the treadmill can even make it feel worse, you know. You see you're trapped.
So our brains keep us running this race. But it's not just about wanting things, is it? It shapes our feelings, too. How do our emotions fit into this picture of, let's call it evolved delusion?
Oh, they're absolutely central. Feelings are, at their core, evolution's quick and dirty guidance system. Approach this, avoid that. They're basically judgments about the world.
True feelings guide us well. False ones, not so much.
Pretty much. A true feeling might be feeling warmth from a fire. Useful, accurate, but false feelings. They steer us wrong, often because the world we live in now is just so different from the ancestral environment where these feelings evolved.
Can you give an example? A feeling that feels really strong, maybe even good in the moment, but is actually off?
Road rage is a classic. That flash of anger when someone cuts you off. Punishing disrespect might have had social value in a small group, maintaining status.
Right, keeps people in line.
Maybe. But that surge of adrenaline, that desire to retaliate, chasing someone down the highway at 80 miles per hour, totally counterproductive, dangerous even. It feels powerful, maybe righteous, the poisoned root and honeyed tip, as the Buddha might say, but it's ultimately harmful. A false feeling for our context.
What about things like anxiety, like social anxiety?
Oh, definitely. Think about painful self-consciousness. In a hunter-gatherer band, your reputation was everything. Survival and reproduction depended heavily on what others thought.
So being super attuned to social signals was critical.
Highly adaptive. But now, we're constantly meeting strangers, giving presentations, navigating huge, anonymous social landscapes. That ancient programming can trigger intense anxiety in situations where the actual stakes are much lower or the threat isn't really there.
Like worrying about a PowerPoint presentation hours after you've given it.
Exactly. Or that dread before a cocktail party. These anxieties might stem from deeply rooted evolutionary concerns about social standing, but they often become unproductive, even paralyzing in modern life.
Right.
Wright mentions the scar experiment, where people imagined reactions to facial scars they didn't actually have, showing how readily we project these anxieties.
So our feelings, shaped for a different world, often aren't reliable guides anymore. Which brings us back to, well, who is this I is having these feelings? If our feelings can be illusions, what about our sense of being a unified self in control? Is that also shaky?
That's maybe the most radical implication. The science really does undermine that intuitive feeling of a central CEO, self, running the show.
You mean like we're not actually deciding everything consciously?
A lot less than we think.
Huh.
Look at the split brain studies. You separate the brain hemispheres. The right hemisphere initiates an action, maybe picking up an object related to a picture only it saw. Ask the person why they did it. And the left hemisphere, the language part, instantly invents a plausible but completely false story.
And the person believes their own made-up reason.
Absolutely, they confabulate. Or the pantyhose experiment. People consistently preferred the item on the far right, but gave all sorts of reasons about quality, totally unaware of the position effect. Our conscious mind is brilliant at rationalizing after the fact.
And there are those Libet studies too, right? Showing brain activity before people are aware of deciding to act.
Exactly. All this points towards the idea that the conscious self isn't the prime mover we assume it is.
Yeah.
Wright puts it bluntly. The conscious mind is naturally deluded about its own nature.
Wow. Okay, but why? Why would evolution build us like this? What's the advantage of self-delusion?
It seems to come down to social convincing. If you genuinely believe your own flattering stories about yourself, Wright calls this benefactance, seeing ourselves as beneficial and effective, you're much more convincing when you tell those stories to others.
So self-deception helps you deceive others more effectively.
Sounds cynical, but yeah, that seems to be the evolutionary logic. It helped build reputation, gain status, attract mates, all crucial for gene proliferation. We even remember events that make us look good in more detail. And retelling stories subtly shapes the memory to be even more flattering.
The above-average effect comes to mind, too. Most people think they're better than average drivers, even those who cause accidents.
Precisely. Believing you're competent and good helps you project that image, which was incredibly valuable ancestrally.
Okay, so if there's no single CEO self, no unified controller, how do decisions even get made? How does anything happen?
This is where the idea of the modular mind comes in. Instead of one boss, think of the mind as, well, a collection of specialized modules, like different software programs, often competing for control beneath the surface of consciousness.
Like different departments vying for the CEO's attention?
Kind of, yeah. Right, quote someone saying it's like a dog-eat-dog world going on in your brain, different systems competing to win the prize of conscious recognition. And feelings are often the triggers.
Feelings activate specific modules.
Exactly. Think about sexual jealousy, as analyzed by Cosmides and Tooby. It's not just one feeling. It triggers a whole suite of responses: suspicion, anger, reevaluating memories, maybe preparing for conflict. It's like a whole new self has emerged and seized control of the mind, temporarily.
And it doesn't have to be such a strong emotion.
No, even subtle shifts. Studies show seeing an attractive person can make men, say, suddenly want immediate rewards more, or even shift their career goals towards making more money. A different module, a different set of priorities takes the helm.
So our sense of self is actually quite fluid, shifting depending on which module is currently running the show.
That's the idea. We're governed by the part of the mind that's in charge at that moment. The feeling of a stable, consistent CEO is largely an illusion hosted by consciousness.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. Our feelings are unreliable guides, our sense of self is fragmented. If this is the truth, how do we actually use this knowledge? How do we make it practical? This must be where meditation comes in.
It is. This is where we look at mindfulness not just as a relaxation technique, but as a tool for investigation.
Not just stopping to smell the roses.
Far from it, actually. If you look at ancient texts like the Satipatthana Sutta, the four
Yeah.
foundations of mindfulness, they instruct meditating on unpleasant things too, like the components of the body, decay. It's about sustained, clear-eyed observation of what is pleasant or unpleasant.
And what does that kind of intense observation do, especially to that constant mental chatter, the mind wandering?
It seems to quiet down what neuroscientists call the default mode network, or DMN. That's the brain network active when we're not focused on a task, when we're mind-wandering, thinking about ourselves, the past, the future.
So meditation dials that down.
Evidence suggests it does. And when the DMN quiets, people often report a deepened absorption in everyday sensations. Wright talks about birdsong sounding really pretty, or the texture of tree bark becoming enthralling. It's like the world comes alive more vividly when the self-centered chatter recedes.
A kind of re-enchantment. How does this relate back to the illusion of the self, though?
Well, think about the very first instruction in mindfulness meditation. Focus on your breath. What happens almost immediately?
Your mind wanders off.
Exactly. You try to stay focused, but thoughts just pull you away. That's direct, experiential evidence that the conscious you isn't fully in charge. It fits perfectly with the modular mind model. Different modules just hijack your attention.
So you witness the lack of control firsthand.
Right. And with practice, some meditators report reaching a point where they can observe thoughts arising, just sitting there and then dissolving, without getting carried away by them. They see thoughts as events that happen in consciousness, not things created by a central self.
Like watching clouds drift by.
That's a common analogy. And this extends to feelings, too. Wright describes experiences where, through meditation, he could observe, say, jaw tension from stress or anxiety before a talk with a kind of dispassionate distance. The feeling was still there, but it ceased to feel unpleasant, ceased to feel like part of me. It became just another object of observation.
Disowning the feeling, in a way.
Exactly. It aligns with the Buddha's challenge to someone who claimed form as myself. The Buddha asks, essentially, do you have king-like control over your body? Can you just decide not to age, not to get sick? The answer, obviously, is no. Modern psychology suggests we have even less control than we think.
This feels like peeling back yet another layer. Is there something even deeper, this concept of emptiness or formlessness? What's that about?
Yeah, emptiness sunyata is a core concept, and it's subtle. It doesn't mean nothing exists. It means things lack inherent, independent, fixed essence. It's about seeing things more directly as raw sensory data before our minds automatically slap labels and concepts and judgments onto them.
Can you give an example of what that feels like?
Wright shares a great anecdote from a retreat. There was this incredibly annoying buzzsaw sound nearby. Initially, it was grating, but by focusing on the raw sound, letting go of the idea of buzzsaw and all the negative associations, the unpleasantness dissolved. He describes it becoming almost like music.
So the sound itself wasn't inherently bad. It was the mental layer added to it.
Precisely. The sound waves are passive. We do something to them. We add the essence of annoying buzzsaw. Our brains do this constantly, automatically tagging experiences with positive or negative affective priming.
Like that wine experiment you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Same wine, different price tag, $90 to $10. People didn't just say the $90 wine tasted better. Brain scans showed more activity in pleasure centers, the medial orbitofrontal cortex. The story, the expectation, literally changed the sensory experience. It shows how powerfully our minds construct reality, projecting essence onto things.
And this applies to people too, presumably, seeing past the essence we project onto them.
Definitely. Wright describes a breakthrough seeing someone he intensely disliked, Larry. Instead of seeing Larry's irritating behaviors as just the essence of Larry, he started perceiving them as manifestations of insecurity. Suddenly, the anger dissolved, replaced by a flicker of compassion. He broke down the old essence of Larry.
Seeing the underlying causes rather than just the fixed label.
Right. It's about deconstructing those automatic judgments and essences we impose. He also talks about losing the essence of weed when looking at a plantain weed, or feeling kinship with a lizard, seeing shared struggle rather than just lizard. It ties into what philosopher Miri al-Bahari says about tanha, craving, and aversion being linked to our sense of self and the boundary between self and other.
So reducing aversion, like Wright overcoming his irritation at someone snoring on retreat, can actually make that self-other boundary feel more porous.
That was his experience. He described trying to imagine the feeling in his gut and the snoring sound as a kind of single system. It diluted the aversion, the tanha, that reinforces the feeling of a separate, bounded self.
This is incredibly deep stuff for personal transformation.
Yeah.
But you mentioned William James earlier. Is there a bigger picture here beyond just individual well-being?
I think Wright argues there is. James talked about religion involving belief in an unseen order and finding our supreme good by adjusting to it. From a secular Buddhist perspective, that unseen order could be seen as reality's true nature, interconnected, less fragmented, empty of fixed essences.
And our supreme good, happiness, maybe even virtue, comes from aligning ourselves with that truer picture.
That's the idea. There's a potential structural alignment between metaphysical truth and moral truth. Seeing reality more clearly, particularly the illusion of a separate special self, naturally erodes the roots of selfishness, greed, and hostility.
So understanding these insights is almost like a rebellion against natural selection.
That's a powerful way to put it. Natural selection hardwired us to feel, I am special by virtue of being me. That egocentric view was adaptive in a zero-sum world. Protect your kin, compete fiercely. But now, in our hyper-connected global society, that same ingrained sense of specialness, my group, my nation, my beliefs, are superior fuels. Tribalism, conflict.
Yeah.
It potentially threatens our collective future. Wright suggests that looking at the sweep of evolution towards greater complexity and interdependence, our intense focus on self-specialness might actually endanger that whole process.
Like needing to transcend our built-in perspective.
Exactly. He draws an analogy to Einstein moving beyond the single perspective of how fast is it moving relative to me, to find the deeper truths of relativity. We need a similar shift. A snake is bad for us, maybe good for its mate. Rotting flesh is disgusting to us, dinner to bacteria. No single perspective is the ultimate truth.
And mindfulness meditation is a tool for that perspective shift, a way to
Yeah.
rebel against that specialness of self-programming.
That's the argument. It's a practice aimed at seeing through the delusions natural selection favored, moving towards a truer, less self-centered view of the world and our place in it.
What are the rewards then if you undertake this internal rebellion? Does life just become bland and detached?
Quite the opposite, according to Wright and many others. He mentions his wife saying he sounded like a completely different person after his first intensive retreat, calmer, maybe kinder. And far from becoming bland, quieting the self-centered chatter can lead to that re-enchantment we talked about. Beauty, wonder, connection. These can actually become more accessible.
So it's not about eliminating feeling, but achieving a different kind of happiness.
A more valid happiness, Wright suggests. One based not on fleeting pleasures or ego-boosting illusions, but on multifaceted clarity. Seeing the world, others, and ourselves more truly, and that clarity, the argument goes, naturally moves us closer to moral truth as well.
It's been quite the journey today, from seeing how evolution wired us for certain kinds of delusion to the Buddhist insights of not-self and emptiness, and how mindfulness can be a practical path towards seeing through it all. The convergence of ancient thought and modern science is really striking.
It truly is. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. That critical point, that space between feeling and craving, the moment an unpleasant feeling arises, before we automatically react with aversion, or pleasant one, before we grasp that that's the pivot point.
Place where we can intervene.
Exactly. Where we can choose not to automatically follow the script of tanha, of craving and aversion. And every time we do that, it's a small act of rebellion against that deep evolutionary programming. So the question becomes, if seeing through the specialness of self leads to clearer perception, greater compassion, especially now, do we reach a point where we have to consciously choose different values?
Like Neo choosing the red pill, deciding we want liberation from the forces that seem to control us.
Precisely. Is this quest for clarity not just about our own peace of mind, but maybe something bigger, maybe essential for the flourishing, perhaps even the survival of sentient life in this increasingly complex world? Something to think about.